All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the Sicha podcast. A big thank you to all those who sent us some feedback. It's very, very helpful. We've got mics, we've got changed up backgrounds. We're working towards we're working and thriving on the feedback that we get. So thank you so much, and definitely feel free to listen to this on 0.2 or X2 speed, and we hope you all enjoy. So today we are Lukut Sichas Chelek Chaf Aleph, Sicha Va'era Beis, and Moshe, Rabbi Moshe. We're turning it over to you to bring us in, set the table for us. Let's go.
Okay, I think we're going to be talking about the Makkah, the plague of the frogs. The Rebbe derives from a medrash that there was something unique about the plague of frogs that was different and more important, in a sense, than any of the other plagues or any of the other things that happened to the Egyptians. And the discussion of the Sicha is what is so unique about the plague of frogs. And we are going to get into a conversation about various different types of heresy or questioning Hashem, and the atheist versus the apathetic one. And we're going to explore all of that, Be'ezras Hashem. I'll begin just with introducing that the Rebbe in the Sicha speaks about three forms of not believing in God. One is to accept that our sustenance comes from God, which means that God does exist, but it doesn't mean that he's the only God. That's sort of the most subtle of the three. A person that believes in a multitude of deities. The second example the Rebbe gives is a person that acknowledges the existence of Hashem, but he does not believe that he was created or he receives his or her sustenance from Hashem, which means while they believe he exists, they don't believe that he is relevant or necessary in their lives and in their existence. And the third, which seems to be the worst of all of them, is the one who claims that there is no God, the atheist, the agnostic, the one who says, I don't believe in the existence of God. So before we get back to the frog, let's stop for a second here and see if there's anything to talk about these three different levels and how ultimately which one is the worst.
Shmuli, are you going or am I going here?
I'll just give a quick short analysis of the three levels, and then we should bring it back to the frog soon. But just to bring it home, the idea that there is a God, 56% of the world's population believes in monotheism today. So you're talking about billions of people from various different backgrounds and religions. So the fact that that it's common today, it's actually fascinating. I mean, off topic, the fact to think that Avram started something, and today, more than half of the world's population believes in monotheism, never mind other forms of, so anyway, that idea, everybody's comfortable with. So I say everybody, I don't want to generalize, but there's a very, very strong comfortability. But when you talk about my life, you talk about day to day, you talk about really the Eibishter is like, no. So when you say about other gods, you say that first level, I think what that also could reference in our day and age is that people attribute powers, not because there's belief maybe technically in other gods per se, like in the olden times when there was other gods. It was the god of rain or the god of the sun, the things that benefited them. And those idols for us today are all kinds of things that we live in our world. And that's the things that we idolize, that we forget about Hashem in that space. And, and we're living life. So that's, just to clarify that number one, it sounds like very far away, but it's actually a very common, comfortable zone where you believe in God, everything's good. But like realistically, there's a lot of other gods. When often you think that you're bowing to a god, but it could be a Hollywood god, it could be a TikTok god, it could be an influencer god, it could be all kinds of different idols that exist within our life and so on. I have and anyway. So then like Moshe said, the middle one is the level where it's all about self, and there's no paying attention to Hashem, and then there's the fighter. Then there's the fighter.
Right. So the Rebbe over here in Moshe speaks a lot. The first novelty of the Sicha is that the person the heretic, the person who says there's absolutely no God whatsoever, is actually not the worst. Yeah, I've always heard this, but to see the Rebbe writing the Kutei Sichos is always beautiful. As a shliach, we love the people who come into our Chabad houses and are fighters. Those are the Jews. We absolutely they're begging so much not to believe that it's is what it's actually like it's gold. There's so many different things that come to mind when you share this. I mean, there's a very famous Adin Steinsaltz story, about the professor who didn't want to come to his class. You know this, right? They didn't want to come to his class because he said, "You don't want me in your class. I go to the one place in Israel that's open every Shabbos, Yerushalayim, and I make sure to have a ham sandwich and whatever. Like I'm the last guy you want." He said, "No, it's actually great. You believe in Shabbos and I believe in Shabbos. You believe in kosher, I believe in kosher. We're just right, two different extremes. But there's something deeper here, which I take." That the person who's absolutely doesn't believe in the Eibishter, God is what he's saying is that if there was a God, then that would have to change my life. The reason that I don't want to believe in God is I'm not interested in that purpose and mission. It's a package deal. So it's almost like you're admitting that if there's a God, then that's
Yisroel,
there's something into it.
You can't question a God that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
So
But
the very question is an act of faith.
Right, but it's more. It's also about how am I going to live? I'm going to live a different life because I now believe in
But even before you get to the outcome of that conversation, the very default conversation is you can't have a conversation about something that doesn't exist. Everything within our worlds has its place in existence in some form or another. Any creative movie, thought, idea, it's all this in Chodesh Tachas Hashemesh. So the very fact that you're questioning God is an act of faith. That doesn't answer the question, and that doesn't really explain what the end result is if you actually would have an answer. And frankly, obviously, from our perspective, the questions is a verification that we are not God. Because if I would understand God, then I would be God. But that's already another.
No, but I think the novelty over here is the paroi, the kfir al paroi, the heresy al paroi that is I believe in Hashem, and yet I'm not ready. It doesn't mean anything to me. So okay, so God exists. Very good.
So now you're zoning in on the middle.
Right, and that's why it's worse. If Moshe, you want to talk a little bit about that.
I just want to say one last thing
why it's the worst
about the third one, and then we'll go. I think we'll switch over to the second one. At least for me, teaching high school students all the time, you always have that student that comes in that's the troublemaker, that's the one arguing. And it's like the story you said about the student and the professor. So more often than not, teachers can handle that student. But that's the student you want in the class. That's the one who's going to be successful. That's the one who's going to ask questions and create a tumult. So that third level, which seems like it's the most terrible level, actually it's not. So what is it? What is it, Moshe? What's the story here?
So I just want to say something, sort of as an intro. My son was a learning teacher in camp. Before he went to camp, they gave some training. Some professional shliach came in and trained, gave them some. So they said like this. They said in every bunk there's three categories. There's the good kids, there's the bad kids, and the kids in the middle. So you want to spend the time with the good kids. You end up spending time with the bad kids. And you should be spending time with the kids in the middle. Because the good kids are already good. If you spend time with the kids in the middle, you lift them up. You automatically will lift up the entire bunk. The bad kids will be pulled in with that, hopefully. But when you spend all the time with the bad kids, then the ones in the middle get forgotten. And it's not exactly the same thing as the discussion in the Sicha, but it reminded me of the three categories and where we think we have to invest our efforts. And in truth, and the efforts are sometimes misdirected. What Yisroel was saying before actually reminded me of the Sicha in Chelek Aleph about Ad Masay Atam Peschem Al Shtei Asifim, where Eliyahu says to the Yidden, for how long will you jump on both ends of the coin, both sides of the coin? If you want to serve the Baal, the idol, serve the idol. If you want to serve Hashem, but don't serve both. And there's a certain similarity here where the person the way the Rebbe says it over there was if a person serves the Baal, he's trying to do what he believes is right. And ultimately, when he discovers it's wrong, he will end up doing the right thing, which is what Yisroel was saying, is that the denial of Hashem is affecting the person's conduct. The person in the middle, in this case, so here it's not exactly the same as over there at Masei Atam Peschim, but here the bottom line what the Rebbe says on this Sicha is that the person who believes in Hashem's existence and does not believe that it's relevant to him has an apathetic approach to godliness and to his faith. He says, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me, the fact that Hashem exists. I don't have to yes believe or not believe. I have no problem believing in him, but I'm not going to change anything about me because his existence doesn't affect me. And this is a very, very dangerous approach because there's nothing to grab onto. There's nothing to say, here he's trying to do what's right. He wants to be a better person. Here, he just doesn't care. He wants to live his life and do what he enjoys and what he likes to do. The fact that there is a higher calling, the fact that there is a mission, a reason for his existence, that is totally irrelevant to him. He does his thing. He doesn't have to fight Hashem. It doesn't bother him to say Hashem exists because it doesn't force him, it doesn't compel him to change his ways. And this is, in a sense, the worst of the worst. Because, as you just said before, when someone is apathetic, what do you have to grab onto to draw them into the inner circle?
I switch over for a second, just about experiences. The Rebbe talks about this also in relation to experiences that happen, like experiences that are good, are positive, and have a tail. So, like you see life experiences that are beneficial within our personal life, and they're good and they're positive. So it's sort of like a clean slate. Like that's the way it goes. And then you have negative life experiences, which are sometimes hard to overcome. But those negative experiences are essentially the battle with bad that have the silver lining or have a good outcome in the end. So in some form or another, they're the equilibrium or the balance of life, of the good and bad between in life experiences, which is ultimately all for a purpose. It's all for a good, and you're in that mode of like in motion mode of growth and experience and down and up, and you're moving. You're moving. Now I'm
going to step in to tell a quick story, and then about the negative thing, and then I'll let you go to where you were headed. But a while ago, somebody came to me with an article from Chabad.org in which a woman was writing how her son was killed. Her 8-year-old son was killed in a bus accident, and if not for her faith in Hashem, she wouldn't be able to survive it. And this woman who brought me this article said to me, what kind of God kills an 8-year-old child in a bus accident? And I said, I can't answer your question, but I could tell you that from reading that article, to that woman, if she didn't have faith in God, then she wouldn't be able to survive this. Because how could something so random happen? How do I go on in a world where a child can just chas v'shalom? But knowing that it was from Hashem, even though there's no way to explain it, it actually strengthened her faith. She leaned on that to be able to wake up the next morning and put one foot in front of another. So even though it was a negative event, it was a tragic event, but nevertheless, it actually, in a sense, it forced her to strengthen her relationship with Hashem, which is impossible for us to understand. We maybe never know what she went through, but looking at it academically, the negativity actually leads to question and to uncover that there is actually something, that is actually a connection with Hashem. Go on.
Now, I'm going to go back for a minute about what his problem was and how it relates to us, because I think
you froze for a second. Whose problem?
It's mine.
No, I'm saying you say you're going to discuss the problem of Paray or of Sancheriv.
You go ahead while I fix my Wi-Fi.
Okay, Shmuli.
Yeah, so I think that what we're sort of leading into here is, and you really leaned into it there, Moshe, is that the connection to Hashem. Just want to stop for a second and let those words sink in. Because there's connection. What's the connection? The connection could be the positive, amazing miracle. Let me tell you a story that happened to me. I went to the oil, and this is something amazing that happened. I had a student that, everybody has their, I have a story, a family story, a shluchah story, of this story, of that. Amazing, amazing connection stories. And then you have the bad stories that are, when you say bad, but somehow they also
October 7th is a perfect example.
Yeah, they form connection. They form connection. They create connection with us and Hashem, connection in the community, connection amongst people. At the end of the day, they're connection points, and they're sad and hard and hard to digest on so many levels. But they're connection points. They're the battle within from the difficult experiences that bring us more connected in so many different levels. And of course, we wish that it should always be positive. But then there's the middle level, which we haven't talked about. We're talking around it, is where there isn't that connection.
So I want to say, I want to say the story that I heard from. I don't want to say the name of who it was because you'll see why. The context is that there's a Chabad rabbi on a campus is going to somewhere to bris in a religious community somewhere in America, and the rabbi is digging him and questioning him all about his life on campus. What do the students come and they do and they grow, and how many people go to yeshiva, and how many people marry Jewish, and how many people start putting on tefillin, and all these digging things. After half an hour, the shliach says to this rabbi, he's not a Chabad rabbi. He says, "I'm curious. Like, it sounds like you want to come, to be a rabbi on a college campus. Is that what it is?" And he says, "No, actually, no, I'm very happy here, but I've been a rabbi here for 20 years in this wonderful community, and nobody has budged 1 ounce of growth in the last 20 years. So I'm fascinated by the fact that people are growing in the Yiddishkeit." And so these are people who come to
We lost you there.
their classes.
Yeah.
They do everything they need to do, but what's missing? In other words, it's not that they don't believe in God and Torah and mitzvahs, and it's all 100% true. What's missing is it my God? Is it changing my life? Is it relevant to me? And
hold on,
okay.
I want to interrupt that story for 1 second. That in that experience is also the people who are angry with the rabbi, who will never walk into your shul, who said, today I'm not putting on tefillin, rabbi, and then tomorrow they come back to put on tefillin. That whole is a full circle experience of the two sides of the coin,
Correct.
of the two sides of these three levels.
But to make it personal in our life, in my life,
yeah,
it's so easy for me, like you said, for me, Yisroel Wilhelm, to go and a beautiful story happens in our shluchas and an inspiring day, and it's great. That's not my challenge, and in a funny way, right? The challenges of my life are the things that got me most connected to who I really am, and that pushed me to places that I didn't know was possible. What's the most frustrating, where I lose my faith in my shluchas, in my connection to Hashem, just on a day-to-day, just where there's where I was, just the day, the emptiness of the day-to-day, the struggle, the simple, not the extreme struggle, the simple stuff, that are not the highs and the lows in the middle, and that's where that's where fear comes in and anxiety, because I'm forgetting that Hashem is running this too, it's almost the ability to, and that to me is, that's the basic struggle that I have of, making that my emunah in Hashem, actually, my belief in God, actually like practical and life changing on a day to day experience.
So let's circle it back to the Sicha for a second, Moshe. Before we analyze the antidote and the answer and how we need to deal with the middle level, what is the middle level? Tell us a little bit about the middle level in the story of Mitzrayim, in the story of Paray. What is the Tzfardea? What happened here? What's going on?
Okay, so in the beginning of the Sicha, the Rebbe had asked, what is so unique about the plague of the frog that the Medrash implies that was the most important one? And based on this discussion about the three different levels, the Rebbe explains that also in the world you have certain animals or insects that if you look a little bit deeper, you'll find their function. And because they have a function, therefore you know that someone created them, that someone being Hashem. Sometimes you have certain animals that are destructive, but what are they destroying? They're destroying a world which obviously was created by Hashem. Plus, even in their destructiveness, they're actually sometimes they're fulfilling a shlichus, a mission for Hashem, whether to punish or whether to help in whatever way it is. So in almost every single thing that Hashem created, because it has a function, it also it automatically reveals that there is a creator behind that function. And the exclusion to that is the tzvardeya, the frog, that seems to have absolutely no function. And this would compare to that middle level where you have a person that believes that God exists and feels that God is irrelevant, which means he sees no connection between God and his life. Just like in the tzvardeya, in the frog, you see no connection with its creator. Because in everything else, the function reveals the creator behind the scenes. The frog, if it has no function, then it means it has no creator, or there's no way to see the creator by seeing the frog. So the frog represents the approach of Paroi, which sees no connection between the individual and its ultimate true creator, namely God. And then what happens in the plague of the frog is that despite the fact that it has no function, it doesn't do anything to creation, for creation, it doesn't even do anything destructive. That was the one that actually went and fulfilled the Hashem shlichus to go into the ovens and to give up to die for Hashem. Showing that even something that seems to not have a connection, it ultimately does have a connection. It ultimately does represent God in this world, and this broke Paroi's I'm trying to think of the right word in English, but this broke Paroi's approach that there could be something in this world that's disconnected from Hashem. Paroi's entire being, it claims that I could be disconnected from Hashem, and the frog proved that there's no such thing.
So I want to just bring this down a little bit.
Please, I was just
no. That's exactly. Let's bring it down to us now. Perfect. So I always try and bring it back to ourselves. What does that mean to me and you? So first, I was thinking, Yisroel, when you were talking before, like when do we call each other, like as friends? When. So either it's an amazing, I got to tell you, it's an amazing thing that just happened, or you don't know what just happened. That's how the conversation just starts. It's those two. So back to relationships, though, because everything comes back to relationships. Because we're talking about our relationship with Hashem. So sometimes it's easier just to dumb it down for a second. In relationships, the question often is, what are we doing? What's going on? What vacation are we going on that we're doing something with? And in a relationship, it's the positive experience, or it could be negative. But there always has to be an action. There's always about what this experience is going to look like. It's always about something. It's always about something. The phone call is always about something. The experience is always about something. And sometimes you ask a question, does it always have to be about something? Could it be about nothing? Could the relationship be that big that we could sit here and talk about nothing? Could the relationship with your spouse be so big that there is no crisis with your children, there is no health issues, there is no nothing, and it could be beautiful, and it could be connectivity. Back to the word you said before, Moshe. And actually, the Rebbe uses this word in explaining what the tzvardeya did was their ibegegebenkeit, their connectivity in a place where it's not obvious, for the good or for the bad. That is where you're in a space where in life where there's no grand story, there's no gain, there's no purpose, there's nothing I'm getting out of it. There's no cause and effect, there's no business transaction, there's nothing in it for me, there's nothing in it for you, there's no sacrifice, there's no spiritual, there's no physical. So then what are you doing? Why are you here? What's your engagement? And the answer to that is, my engagement is I'm connected. I'm here. I'm with you. This is my story. It's relevant. It matters even when it's not grand or grandiose, or even if it's not sour and down. That the relationship at a base level is an extremely, it's like the 80% you were talking about before. That's where the win is. And that was the answer. I think that's the way I see it. The answer to us in our business relationships, in our shluchas, with our spouses, with our children, with the people we interact with. Of course, the special thing that happens is the spark, and it's an amazing day and something special. And vice versa, when things go on, we find energies to overcome and to challenge. And this is what how we interact with other people. But the connectivity, which represents really who we are as a shliach, as a person, as a spouse, as a father, as a friend, as a human being in this world, connected to humanity, connected to the world, connected to everything that we're encountering, is the essence of life. And that is Hashem. That is godly. So when we could feel that and sense it and touch it and be and live that way, then that is the Tzardeya telling Pare, no. Everything is deep and meaningful and special. Anyway, that's my bring it home.
Beautiful, actually, really beautiful. And I think, like, I might have gone switched our order, because it's always more impactful when we speak about our own relationships. But I think that when we look at a fellow Yid, whether, let's say we're going on Mitzayim or on where we meet a person, and our initial reaction might be, oh, this person, one day he's gonna become from. One day he's gonna be a chassid, or whatever it might be. You're always looking initially for, why would I invest my time and my effort into this Yid? And what gain there could be from it. Maybe he'll become a big supporter one day, or whatever it might be. And then sometimes you meet a Yid that because obviously we have limited vision, we don't see anything major coming out of this engagement. We'll put tefillin on him. That in itself is a major engagement. But we think we'll meet a guy. We don't see another meeting coming from this. He doesn't even live locally, so we don't know if we'll ever meet him again. And our initial reaction is, and sometimes what do we tell ourselves? We did a good deed, and Seifa Kavod Lava, in the end, something will come from it. But even that is not the ultimate value of that Yid. The ultimate value of that Yid is that he's a piece of me, and he's a piece of Hashem. And even if I could never discover or uncover what his market value is to me, but to be able to look at a fellow Yid and say, even the expression "Ein lecha adam she'ein lo isha," you say every person has their moment. Even if you don't know what that moment is, you don't know if they'll ever have a moment. But ultimately, he's a Yid. He's a Ben Avram Yitzchak v'Yankiv. He's the Eibishter's child. He's our brother or it's our sister. And therefore their value is their intrinsic connection to us. It actually touches a little bit on the Ava Atzmis that we spoke about last week. That sometimes it's not about the accomplishments and it's not about what we're going to gain out of this, but we have to learn from the Tzardeya that like you're saying, whether it's for ourselves or as we look at another person, or for that matter another event. Something happened and we have no idea why it happened. We have to recognize that in every single thing that the Eibishter does in this world, happens in this world, there is something there, but not something major. But it's all part of Hashem's Hashgacha Pratis.
Yisroel?
Yeah, so for me, to add, you said most of the things I want to say, but one that could here, the Rebbe speaks at the end about.
Boom.
We'll come back to Yisroel. I'll share one thing, and while Yisroel fixes, this is my last final thought. I was doing some research on the 12 Psukim once, and I found a very interesting thing. I think it was on Chabad.org, where it writes over there that the Rebbe introduced the 12 Psukim to emphasize the intrinsic value of our youth. They are not simply keys to the future, they are inherently important. It's not about the grand story. Sorry, Yisroel, go ahead. You're back to us now.
No, it's good. No, if I have a chance, I'm sorry, I'm actually with my wife. I had a new location.
Go.
We learn Mesiras Nefesh from the frogs because I got a call from an alumni whose life, Baruch Hashem, is doing well. He said, how's your life? He goes, it's great. It's very boring. It's very boring. He goes, is that good? He goes, yeah, it's actually bad. It's just boring. In other words, everything's fine, but it's boring. And as human beings, we look for excitement and we do the big picture things and we forget about the small things that matter. The frog ultimately is the plague that was nothing dramatic happened compared to any other plague. It was the least dramatic plague You know, a bunch of kids had frogs to have a toy with. It was nothing compared to not having a shower or the worst things, right? And yet, as we see from the Midrashim, and you can look in the Sicha to see more, this becomes where you learn Mesiras Nefesh from. This is where you learn greatness from. And what the Rebbe is pointing out in this beautiful Sicha is exactly because greatness is exactly in the simple things in life where you find the ultimate way to connect to Hashem. And when you bring Hashem into your day-to-day life, because that's where it's hardest, and you can really connect to Hashem in every moment, meaning that there's nothing outside of Him. There's nothing outside of God. It's all part of it. That's where, that's where you'll find ultimate, connection and simcha. So anyway, it's the most boring part of life. But for us, it's the most important part of life, because when you find happiness there.
I think that's a perfect ending.
I want to say, Shmuli, I want to say one more thing. I'll be 60 seconds.
Okay, go ahead.
But we're nearing 5 years since we started Project Likutei Sichos. And Mamish, this next week, Parshas Boy is completing our 5th year, and there's various different types of sichos. There's certain sichos that everyone knows, they're very geschmack. They're everyone knew them. The Bitachon Sicha, the Trachlik, the Neigut Sicha, the Bar Mitzvah Sicha. Then you have certain sichos that are very, very, very difficult. But when you learn them and it's so hard, it's a hadrin, it's something you have to learn 5 different gemaras, and you come to the end and you say, wow, this is mamish brilliant. This is really, but then there are certain sichos, and to quote people we've spoken to in the past, they say, if not for Project Likutei Sichos, I would have never learned the sicha. The person looked at the topic, and it seemed irrelevant. It seemed like I can't use it for a sermon. It's not even a deep nigla thing. Chas v'shalom to even say that word on a sicha. But people have that reaction. Sometimes this is not a sicha that I would have learned. And Amal, you see it clearly, more clear, less clear, that these sichas are so, they're so priceless, even from our human understanding, that the whole Likutei Sichos is worth it for that sicha that everyone overlooked, or many people overlooked. But
hold on, Moshe, but it's worth it not because of the grand hadron that it represents, because of the tzfardeya that it represents.
Yes.
Beautiful, Moshe.
That's what makes our lives on a day-to-day, boring day, like you say, Yisroel, beautiful. So, ladies and gentlemen, today,
sorry about the Wi-Fi, guys. We'll make it upgrade next week again.
Yeah, we're gonna upgrade your Wi-Fi, but it's 3 weeks before your Shvat. It's time for everybody to start learning Project Likutei Sichos. Have a great day. See y'all later.
Beautiful. Thank you, Shmuli.
Bye.